The age of decadence, to just summarize it, it's complacency on a societal level. So obviously we're going to start with rising inequality through the hoarding of wealth, the consolidation of political power, military power. That causes quite a lot of rifts within society. So there's lots of inequality. Wealth is very much concentrated towards the upper class of society. There's typically pressures on an empire in late stage empire from unsustainable territorial expansion.
Yeah, the barbarians at the gates.
Rome is the prime example of that. And obviously, there's this kind of need to expand for either resources or for a cultural win with your own people. Just be like, we are still good at this stuff. We can still retain that warrior spirit that we had in the early days, just to almost convince themselves as an empire that they still got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's obviously.
But it's sort of the image. It's sort of the image of like in Gladiator, what's his face, the Joaquin Phoenix character, who historically has never been gotten right in any of these films. What's he called? But anyway, it's the sort of preening.
We'll flash it up on screen.
Yeah, exactly. He is the sort of preening. Again, he's the son of Aurelius, who
was entitled.
Yeah,
it's entitled.
And Aurelius is he touched grass. He did his military service and but also was able to philosophize famously, and his meditations and all the rest of it.
Very good book, by the way.
Yeah. Well, you can tell me more about it at some point, but God, I'm just really trying to remember his name. Anyway, it's not coming to me. But it's that the image of decadence is the sort of preening, pampered son who has not been allowed, has not been schooled in life by his father, but has simply been given everything on a platter and doesn't and doesn't understand and wants to command respect, but doesn't know how to, because he doesn't have the tools to gain the respect of the army or the rest of it. Because he's never done his
worldview.
Yeah, he's never done his service. He hasn't put the work in. So why would the soldiers respect him? And it's that whole thing of and you get it a little bit in, to go way off planet, literally. Dune 2, the Harkonnen, the Austin Butler character. He's a bit like that, and he has that moment where, he has this whole staged scene where he's in the gladiatorial ring, very much like this guy I can't remember the name of for the life of me, where he's given sort of lame, drugged warriors who he can sort of, he can fancily sort of prance about and
he can stroke his own ego by beating people.
And there's a moment in Dune 2 where the Baron Harkonnen wants to test him and gives him an undrugged warrior as a way of saying, you've actually got to prove yourself to me here, Sonny Jim. We're not just gonna, I'm not just gonna carry on forever. And if you survive this, then there you go. There's some respect for you, and he does, of course, and it does him very well.
Of course.
But anyway, that's just for me. That's the kind of image of decadence, is the sort of rootlessness, the lack of experience, the lack of putting in the graft in life to get you to where you, and just jumping over and then going, oh, what do I do? I don't know, because I've not sort of put the work in, and that's where everything goes wrong for us, for both on an individual level and then also on a societal level.
Yeah, for sure. Just a couple of other bits before we move on to the final and terminal stage. So other sort of symptoms of the age of decadence would be kind of, a more aversion to the military from the general citizenry. So obviously, war is more increasingly seen as a very pointless endeavor. There's so much more lived experience of, veterans from previous wars who have told their family and their descendants how awful it is, the horrors that they've seen, the things they've experienced, and that collective experience is just, no one wants to fight anymore, because quite frankly they've got bigger problems to think about. They've got more, they're just trying. We're almost back to the survival stage for the kind of the lower classes in the society at this stage.
It's that thing from Thucydides, isn't it? That kind of weariness of war. It may be Thucydides or Herodotus. You can probably tell me. In peacetime, he says, in peacetime, sons bury their fathers, but in wartime, fathers bury their sons. And it's that kind of poignant, that sort of poignant sense. And the First World War was a big moment in the British context for this, but that sort of disillusionment and saying, or the Vietnam War in America, of saying, why on earth are we fighting for this mad project? What is it achieving? Why are we doing this?
I think it's the question that's always asked is like, I mean, again, this is a big tangent. We're not going to spend time on this one today, but it's this notion of like, it's never the old politicians fighting these wars that they start. It's just
interestingly,
to send off younger people to go and
that's the sort of lions led by donkeys thing, isn't it? That Alan Clark famously came up with in the 90s. I'm not quite sure when he wrote that book, but interestingly, there is a kind of correction to that, in that the officer class in the First World War was exclusively made up of upper class of the sort of public school boys. Because of how the hierarchy of how the regiments work. And they would often go over
their influence and their stage.
They
didn't have to be with like the grunts almost.
Well, no. But what I'm saying is they're in those regiments. They're at the front. They're the ones leading their men over the top. Often with nothing more than a shooting stick. Often, a lot of them went in without even a gun. So they're just going, charge, and they're the very first one over the parapet. So the upper classes actually lost. Proportionately a greater number than anybody else from their ranks, simply because of this strange kind of deeply sort of classist hierarchical structure, whereby the sons of the great kind of aristocratic families were the ones at the front as the officers. So there is that sort of myth that it's. And it's not a myth completely. I mean, that obviously there were stupid generals.
No, I think it changes.
Stupid generals in their sort of foxholes, sending other people out to die. And the Somme is a classic example of that. But I think there is a healthy corrective.
That notion tends to be. That notion is much clearer from kind of World War II onwards, because warfare changes, and after World War One, that's probably maybe the last instance where you have that style of warfare,
the kind of meat grinder.
But from there onwards, it is just your regular dude just getting sent to die, pretty much.
It's true. I don't know.
I
don't know much about the sort of composition in the Second World War of as you say, it may that may no longer be the paradigm at that point.
Well, I guess I think of it this way: is
Might be
World War
more of a
One is kind of the
professionalized
last instance of like it's the last notion of an honourable war.